Okay, so you're working 7 days a week,
Yes.
and you're doing this bookstore thing. So then, what kind of like did you get? How was the pressure on you to sell? How did that? How was that
Constant.
manifested?
Daily.
And where did that come from? And what did you do?
There was 2 posts in the organization. One was called the DFBO for More.
Okay, complicated title.
Very long title, just means they were really sad over the book materials. Really pushed the materials out to the Tampa public and to the Tampa people outside the organization.
Okay.
Really a big push on books.
All right. And by the way, that DFBO for More was the Deputy Finance Banking Officer for the Marketing of Org Resources and Exchange.
Wow. Okay.
Just so
I
everybody has it clear.
remember that.
That's right.
But I had to recall that. Yeah.
That's right.
She was in my ass quite a bit about book sales.
Yes.
And then I had above her, just to tell you how the organization's a little bit dysfunctional,
Yep.
I would get direct calls from someone I think you know named Jeannie Frankel.
Oh yeah, I remember her.
I became friends with Jeannie.
Okay. And where was she calling you from?
Los Angeles, from Bridge.
Okay, from Bridge Publications.
Yes, the people who produced the books.
Right. And
She would also call me
okay.
daily.
Now, so she's calling you from LA,
Yes.
pressuring you to sell books.
And I have a boss pressuring me to sell books.
And you have the DFBO pressuring you to sell books.
Right.
Now, the DFBO, now not to get too heavy on structure, but the DFBO is not actually your senior.
No, but in a small org, as you know, and I'm sure that you've been told this term, called Hey You.
Yes, the Hey You org board, yeah.
We
Hey
were
You.
very much a Hey You organization.
Right.
So our FBO, who was above the DFBO,
Yeah.
was actually our registrar.
Oh, wow.
You want to talk about cross
Yeah, totally cross.
hats.
Okay. So you didn't have a direct senior as a like according to the titles on the organizing board, your senior would have been what was called the dissemination secretary.
We didn't have one of those.
Okay. Did you have the next person up would have been the HCO executive secretary?
Very seldom did the HCO executive secretary have anything to do with books at our place.
Got it. Okay, but
Nor was that
technically-
post completely filled all the time.
Good. Okay, so there either wasn't somebody there or the person who was there barely had time for you.
About 90% of the time, there was
Okay.
nobody there. There was somebody who would be posted maybe here and there, or what was called covering that post, but it was what you would refer to as, or what Hubbard referred to as a camouflaged hole.
Got it. Okay, so there's just nobody really there. And the next level up is the executive director, the person who's running the whole show.
Right.
And so your senior really would tend to be this whole of a person who was sometimes there, or the executive director, the guy who's running the whole program. So these people are kind of ignoring you.
Yeah, the only time the executive director ever came into the bookstore is if they needed something from the bookstore. I never really had a direct line to that senior, other than you become friends with these people, or you know them, or you say hi, or you every Thursday night you go to the staff meeting and they ask you, because they're the most direct line, what was your stat?
Right. Meaning your statistic.
Yeah, what was your statistic?
your
How many
production.
books did you sell?
Right.
How many meters did you sell?
So this is really interesting only because it really shows it was exactly the same in Santa Barbara where I was coming up for 8 years. And the point being that, this is what it's like for real in a Church of Scientology. Is
Absolutely.
These holes and these cross lines of people running each other who really have no business running each other. And there's this beautiful chart on a wall that shows what it's supposed to look like. But really, it's just a bunch of people running around telling each other what to do.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to comply to orders that they're receiving, like from a phone call from LA. You're getting called from this woman you've never met.
Oh, yeah.
From the organization that makes the books.
Yes.
So what were those phone calls like, and what kind of pressure were you getting?
At first, the first one was she was on the phone with, I guess, who would have been the deputy for more, the DFBO,
Yep.
and I was then handed the phone. I'm like, this person gets on the phone and she tells me I have to do all this and all that and all this, and I'm like, yeah, whatever, bitch. I don't really give a shit.
Right.
I didn't really have a whole lot of respect.
Now, at this point, did you have now Jeannie was a Sea Org member. She was a member of the Sea Organization working at Bridge.
Yeah, I didn't really have too much understanding of what that was. We were.
Right.
I remember seeing some guys in uniform in Clearwater.
Yep.
And every now and again, I'd see somebody in uniform at the Tampa org, and I'm pretty new. I'm only in like 3 or 4 months, and I don't know what these people do. I could give a shit. I'm in this room with a bunch of books and a telephone and a list of names, and my job is to make sure every person gets what's called a full library. That's what I was told to do.
All right. So you were basically doing cold calling to call well, not totally cold calling, but you're calling people you haven't met before. I mean, these customers.
No,
these
or I would
Scientologists.
drag them out of the course room at break.
Okay, and trying to convince them to buy a complete library of L. Ron Hubbard materials, all the books and all the lectures.
Oh yeah, that was
were
like
available.
a big, huge thing. Not just buy 1 or 2 books; you have to buy all of the books.
Right. Okay.
I was told that by Jeannie Frankel all the time. Jeannie was a really, once she and I had a rapport, and I apologize for calling her like a bitch because she starts yelling at me. I don't know her. I'm like, fuck. I said something like, go fuck yourself, bitch, or something like that, and I just hung the phone up. And the DFBO from more, she goes like, her eyes are like this big, and she goes, do you know what you just did? I said, yeah, I hung up the phone because this bitch is crazy.
That is just the most awesome thing ever. So, because it was a completely appropriate response.
She started yelling. I don't know her. She's like, I guess I wasn't giving her the right answers. I wasn't like being respectful, but I'm like, I don't know who the fuck you are.
Right. So how did you guys end up mending those fences? What happened?
She called me back that night and said, look, this is kind of how it works. And I know you know from studying this, and because really on the staff statuses you clear up what Sea Org officers are and all that stuff, but you don't really, there isn't like a whole bunch of, maybe outside of one reference about how to treat Sea Org members. Mm-hmm. You're not rubbing elbows with them when you're in a class, when you're in a small organization like
right.
that.
What's called a class 5
a class 5 organization. Yeah. You just don't.
Right.
So I'm like, I don't know these people.
Right.
And I get handed the phone and this woman's yelling at me.
Right.
I'm like, no, this ain't gonna work.
Right.
But she calls me back. The DFBO more talks to her a little bit. We get into a conversation. She says, look, we have to sell these books. That's your job. Again, reiterating that I'll get processing and auditing and all that stuff. Jeannie was pushing that, and that how I could help clear Tampa, make everyone in Tampa, every man, woman, and child clear because the line that kept being hammered at me, and I'm sure you'll understand this line, is called books make booms. Yes. Meaning you get books out there, and the persons who read the books are so much easier to then get money from, and they'll flow more onto the bridge because they have a deeper understanding of Dianetics and Scientology. That was constantly hammered at me.
So for 4 years you were hearing this mantra about books make booms and complete your library and get these books into public hands.
Totally, yeah. I excelled at that post. I didn't really follow a lot of the training. I just went after people because, 2, you get a 15% commission for all book sales above and beyond your staff's salary.
Right. See, that doesn't exist now.
Right, and I got a 5%.
At the time,
and I got a 5% commission on meters.
Okay.
So I was referred to after a while as Chainsaw DeWall.
Really?
I was actually given a chainsaw at 1 year being the bookstore officer, a baby little toy chainsaw that I actually set on a shelf, and because I would take people in the bookstore and I would hammer them until they bought as much shit as I could sell them.
Interesting. Interesting. And was this primarily because of the commissions you were going to get?
It was because of the money, because I wanted to eat, and I was feeding one of my friends who was an auditor who had a full-time job there, and he worked in the tech division and had no way of getting a job. He wasn't going to get a job, so
oh wow!
I was trading
you were
the
supporting
food.
Somebody else.
I was trading the food and the time to set up my auditing.
Oh, and he was going to audit you.
Yeah, and we on our off time, and he was.
Interesting. So you had to actually, I did not know that. So you had to go make all these special arrangements to get the auditing you were supposed to get.
Yeah, when you have 20 some staff and you have 2 auditors, that 12 and a half hours you're told you're going to get, that's not true.
Right.
You can't
Right.
That doesn't even add up mathematically if you think about it before you sign that contract.
Right.
If you know anything about the organization, there's no way that they're going to service the public and service you.